I still have my follow-up questions, but before I get to that, are you suggesting in your last response that there has been some sort of grand conspiracy that has kept these major players from engaging hackers honestly?
Oh, you mean like QAnon and the deep state conspiracies the Trumpy trailer trash believe in? But in the land where we have 3-digit IQs, the question is a very serious one and needs to be addressed. It is so important I'm going to go over my allowed 3 minutes. The simple-minded version of a conspiracy is one where two people get together and directly conspire to do the dirty deed. And no, the board members of Symantec did not call up friends of theirs managing FireEye and work out the idea of sticking it to consumers for profits while ignoring the underlying threats. Within those companies, they might conspire to release a test virus they've been using in the lab into the wild ahead of the next release of their antivirus product to boost sales and give them a momentary advantage over their competitors, something that has been rumored to have happened many times. But those are individual acts by the companies. But conspiracies in the modern business world are born of shared prejudices, backgrounds, and motivations. There need not be a direct conversation. Sadly, greed provides a common denominator between conspirators who have never met, something they share instinctively and can recognize in one another at a distance. All a conspiracy needs is a common motivation or set of circumstances that draws them together. The classic example of a conspiracy in which the conspirators never have to have a conversation is price fixing. A few major players in a market who together dominate the market and are happy with their respective shares of it can independently set the prices of each of their products to exactly match that a competitor has previously set that provides a nice profit for all of them, and they enjoy the additional profits of not having to compete with each other. I was just a kid when I learned something that was true for more than 6 decades all across the United States. For any urban street corner where you had 3 or more gas stations, all the stations would have the identical price per gallon for the grades of gasoline. When prices would raise, every station on the corner would raise their prices exactly the same amount at the same time. But when prices were lowering, alternating stations would take the lead in lowering the prices by 1 penny at each level of decrease. The station taking their turn at lead for that drop would take advantage of a strange quirk of human nature which says that for that penny decrease, customers would flood to that station for that day, mitigating the revenue impact of the price drop for that station. By rotating the lead for each penny of drop round robin, all the stations on that corner kept their revenues maximized this way. Like everyone I know, when I started my first gas station job, I was taught these rules when setting the pumps each day. I never had to talk with anyone from the other stations to know what to set my prices to. It was a universal scam, and a conspiracy at that, in which no one directly conspired with anyone. And so it is in cybersecurity. They all sit in the same corner and follow the model set years ago, with which they are all happy and rake in enormous profits without ever having to actually work to solve anything. All at the expense of the ignorant consumer, as well as uncaring corporations who pass along their losses to that same consumer. Newcomers feed on derivatives of the products and services that religiously follow the model, and woe be to anyone like Certitude Digital who comes along and dares disrupt that model by interfering with hackers directly. There is a tiny subset of the industry that focuses on overselling encryption, which has become laughable to hackers since the way to get around encryption is to simply steal from where something is being decrypted to, something no one other than us seems to have thought about. By the way, we invented Code Cocoon and Hackless Harbor, I can't say it, that creates safe monitor areas to decipher things into, which solves that problem. Authorized applications known to our technology and playing within the rules can then get time-limited stream segments of that data under controlled circumstances. Back on point. So how did this massive con game get deployed worldwide throughout cybersecurity? The common backdrop had already been set by IBM, starting in the 1960s, which had established the remarkable idea in computer sciences that a storage company, with its only role to temporarily store your stuff, could remove you from any control of the security of your stuff completely unto themselves and essentially do anything they wanted with copies of your stuff while outside your purview. That's an idea that never existed in the analog world, that today trillion-dollar companies like Apple, Google, Microsoft, and especially Facebook and LinkedIn absolutely depend upon for their obscene profits. That is, using their data as they, not you, wish, once it comes into their possession without notifying you, compensating you, or protecting the data they are abusing. That fraud is now bigger than pure hacking itself in terms of monetary impact. The realm of green supremacy and data rapers, or as they have been labeled in recent congressional testimony, the robber barons. But I digress. The cybersecurity portion of the problem as we know it today overlays that background and was born into a world of pure greed with no moral constraints whatsoever, in a nearly perfect digital replication of the Roaring Twenties followed by its own Great Depression. Harken back with me to 1987, and let me set the stage. The 1980s were the golden decade of greed. The Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, took his job as stockbroker for L.F. Rothschild in 1987. Reagan was president and had popularized trickle-down theory, the Republican rationale for the rape of the middle class, and the full-on economic exploitation of the 99% by the 1%, which has been accelerated by Trumpism today. Also in 1987, a sociopath named John McAfee, the son of an abusive alcoholic who committed suicide when he was just 15, formed a company devoted to the morbid idea of incrementally profiteering from viruses. While at Lockheed as a Booz Allen consultant, he'd gotten hold of source code for the brain computer virus and saw that more viruses were appearing on a regular basis. He realized that he could create a sustainable, albeit unethical, business model by solving only for each virus as it appeared, rather than closing the entry points all viruses are dependent upon. That singular approach, profiteering dominates efficacy, has dominated cybersecurity ever since. Now the other elements of the perfect storm gather together. The internet arises, the ideal advertising venue for cheap, fast, overwhelming broadcasts of unvetted information to an unsophisticated, ignorant audience. Google and other search engines emerge to help consumers find this pablum. Hackers strengthen to provide the thug threat that McAfee and others need to pump to sell virus scanners, promoting the fear and their products over the internet. And in the background, behind all of this is the frenetic greed-based business environment, especially around all things digital, that will eventually lead to the internet bubble. Digital enterprises are scrambling to scrape uneducated investors from all the newly created wealthy. It is now 1991. Symantec, a reasonably respected PC software company selling utilities based on their recently acquired Norton Utilities, sees their business as having reached a plateau and as dull and boring. They, and others like them, see the lucrative returns in what McAfee and his ilk are doing, and like a B-grade Hollywood actress lured by the ideas of prostitution, they see a natural pathway from their utilities into the high-profit virus scanner world. In December 1999, Symantec was the first to add the one piece that cemented the modern cybersecurity business model, sustenance through subscriptions, with McAfee.com Virus Scan Online. McAfee had long ago made virus scanner renewal required in order to protect against the next virus to emerge. But subscriptions made the renewal payments automatic through hidden or obfuscated future credit card charges that were difficult to revoke. In the IT world, IBM and others had already accomplished the same thing through onerous contracts and maintenance agreements. Other cybersecurity companies and other segments of cybersecurity as they emerged latched onto this highly successful business model as the obvious way forward. When the dot-com bubble burst in 2001-2002, one of the market segments to not only emerge unscathed, but thrive regardless, happened to be the seediest, cybersecurity. This was in part because of perceived need for security in the aftermath of the collapse, and in part because of the coincidental explosions and publications of internet scams, particularly those emanating out of Nigeria. That this business model and these practices survived the dot-com bubble crash and subsequent business downturns has not been lost on venture capitalists and CEOs with shallow and short-term, strictly mercenary worldviews and vision. That greed is a perfect match to rampant Trumpism, where the stock market is an all-time high even as real employment is above 16%, as 1,000s of our citizens die each and every day of coronavirus, hundreds of thousands of small businesses fail, corruption and incompetence of government is rampant at all levels, it's never seen before, and police officers regularly murder persons because of their skin color. Obscene though they may be, those attitudes and the VCs and CEOs that support them dominate Silicon Valley today to the exclusion of anyone else, such that any honest approach to cybersecurity faces incredible headwinds and extreme difficulty getting any traction. That then is how we have arrived at the ubiquitous global conspiracy that cybersecurity has become today. And it is that environment that Certitude Digital is working to overturn, beginning with products and services that actually do the job right.
Okay then, without getting into the nitty-gritty too much, can you tell us how your products and services work differently than the others?
The goal of all other existing cybersecurity products and services available today is to produce the highest possible profit for the least possible investment of effort or capital. They achieve this in three ways. Firstly, by grossly falsifying and pumping up by any means available the public's perceived value of their goods and services on the one hand. Secondly, by avoiding culpability through any means necessary when their products and services inevitably fail. And thirdly, by resorting to an adaptation of Henry Ford's mass production model. That last item is starkly demonstrated in the IT world, especially in light of its stunning failures exposed daily in the media. The model says that cybersecurity vendors will aggregate ever larger piles of the customer's data, that is, data that does not belong to the vendor, and over the entire pile the vendor will throw a thin blanket of their highly priced offerings. This is the most illogical construct in computer sciences, because hackers see these huge piles as they become impossible to hide, and the rewards for the hackers for breaking through that thin blanket increase exponentially. On top of that, the numbers of vendors with the resources to mount products that can scale to the enormous piles declines over time, and the hackers are extremely familiar with the well-worn habits and techniques of the vendors that remain, openly trading the information needed to overcome those products and services on the dark web. 12 years ago, we saw the thundering herd moving in lockstep in that direction and predicted even back then the massive failings that have since occurred and are increasing. We knew the answer had to be in the opposite direction and took our inspiration from Mother Nature. Mother Nature, without exception, protects the largest of its living organisms at the smallest possible organizational unit, the cell, not as huge aggregations. On top of that, the protections Mother Nature provides are systemic, utilize checks and balances, and divide the protective mechanisms as well as their activations into discrete categories, which include those that are chemical, those that are electrical, and those that are physical. Most importantly, those protections remain consistent and independent of the host's home location, current state of motion, or destination after moving. So we do exactly that, amended appropriately to the digital environment. As to what we protect, we can secure digital assets right down to the individual byte level, though the user usually perceives their smallest organizational unit as an individual file, or sometimes a portion of a file. We can seamlessly aggregate what we do to match whatever data organization unit the user wants to support, without the user having to be aware of any translations. As to how we protect, we first place the protected unit permanently into a state that is unreadable to any other technology other than ours, just as the cell is rendered unusable for its purpose by any entity other than its intended host. That protected unit will never again appear in persistent memory on disk or in memory other than its encrypted state. All enciphering is both keyless and amorphous. No two enciphering passes on the same data produce the same bytes or even the same number of bytes. By the way, a side effect of this is that all other external encryption is therefore rendered unnecessary, resulting in tremendous resource, system, and performance improvements. When the data unit needs to be accessed by a caller, the caller's rights to it are assessed, and if appropriate, the data is deciphered into a protected memory area known as a code cocoon. And from there, the results are streamed back out in segments to the caller on a monitored, time-leased basis. Rather than packing everything, data and software alike, into the same place, typically the server, where it can be seen and attacked, we do the opposite. We separate the data units and break all the security metadata and the software components needed to decipher a protected data unit into tiny pieces and scatter them all over. What remains on the server is an amorphous collection of unrecognizable, disorganized bytes that are of no value whatsoever to a hacker. The metadata that determines who can have access to the given data is separated into small enciphered metadata sets called amulets away from the data they protect, and these can be shared among several protected data units, or several can be combined in different ways to protect a single data unit, or both. The amulet criteria defined by the data owner, not the server administrator, in a process and at time completely removed from the deciphering or enciphering process. These criteria can be modified dynamically in real time no matter where they go online. The deciphering process happens at each and every access request for a protected data unit. Deciphered results are never persisted from one access request to another. That deciphering process is itself detached in time and space from any of the other processes we've described, further fragmenting the attack surface, and the results are temporarily stored in an insulated environment under tight control. So much for the digital asset protection technology. GNOMES, our identity authentication and verification technology, provides lockdown guaranteed identity authentication across time and disparate platforms without requiring any hardware support. It does completely away with the need for passkeys, yet at the same time can turn passkeys into something else entirely that actually works and is totally secure. The passkey itself becomes meaningless, but it can be used to provide a map and shortcut to GNOME's technology that is quite useful. Our Kirchhoff's complement and ciphering technologies completely upend how encryption is deployed, eliminating the need for keys and introducing amorphous multivariances and layering techniques. Our Ambient quantum technologies allow our user to project his current on-device presence onto a million different digital asset queries anywhere on Earth, all at once if need be, so that amulet criteria protecting his digital assets in those locations can be answered in the context of his own environment. Our Hackless Harbor technologies likewise extend our code cocoon insulating technologies into other realms where third-party software can take advantage of its safety features. All these things are incredibly efficient and inexpensive, much more so than existing systems they can replace. And all are compatible with the world as it already is. They don't require any changes other than very simple integration of our software and models and methods into existing products and services, which can often be done with small plugins or short scripts. No reinvention of any wheels are required. So yes, everything we do has been intelligently engineered to solve precise problem domains around known and future cybersecurity issues. So by extension, our products and services are very different from anything else out there, yet they play perfectly well with others.
What kinds of products and services do you intend to offer?
At the end of the day, we intend to be a pure technology company. This means that we want to produce application programming interfaces, also known as APIs, software development kits, or SDKs, demos, prototypes, example source code, consulting services, tutorials, documentation, training, certification, and certain server technologies that we provide to hundreds of thousands of strategic partners across the world who then add our capabilities into their own already existing applications, services, platforms, and systems. We will service anyone from the standalone independent content providers of text, music, images, and video, to application developers, to Fortune 50 corporations, financial institutions, NGOs, the government, and other entities. In other words, we do not wish to compete with those who already have products and services of their own, or want to develop new products and services, or simply want to protect their online identities or activities. We simply want to provide state-of-the-art features and services people can trust absolutely, that can be easily added to the things they are already doing. We want to cost so little, tens of thousands of a penny per transaction, and our services and tools become so ubiquitous and easy to implement that no one gives what we do a second thought. The ultimate goal is to get back to our shareholders an average of 1/10,000th of a penny on virtually all of the 8 trillion incremental digital transactions that occur across the world each and every day. Or maybe you make it 1/1000th of a penny, or 1/100th of a penny, or 1/10th of a penny. Before you laugh too hard about 1/10,000th of a penny, you should realize that that amounts to $8 million a day, or $2.9 billion per year. $2.9 billion to get rid of $6 trillion in cybersecurity losses seems like a fair trade, a hell of a lot less than the $180 billion a year we are paying now to not solve the problem. Even if you went with 1/1000th of a penny per molecular transaction, this still would cost the world only $29.2 billion a year against $6.18 trillion in losses now. Pardon the pun, but that's still a steal of a deal. That's just the amulet deciphering processing fees alone, and doesn't include any of the licensing fees, products and services sales, consulting fees, training and documentation revenues, certification fees, or server leases that we anticipate alongside, which would be many multiples of the transaction fees. But to get there, we need to get basic products and services out to the public that demonstrate our capabilities and drive demand for our products. It would be great to land a committed strategic partner in the early going with the resources to help us do that. and a portion of the funding outreach we will be launching shortly will be expended to try to find such a partner. Barring that hookup, we can build on several basic products already in development which we achieve new investment. We can outsource significant portions of these and build the remaining critical and proprietary components in-house using dedicated staff we select and train. The products we are currently developing and a post-funding timeline for completion include the following. Number 1, our Github security product. This is incredibly exciting to me personally because it solves the problems of Microsoft stealing plain text source code from private and public GitHub repositories, where developers worldwide store their latest innovations. Some people may not be aware, but Microsoft recently bought GitHub and gained access to all of those repositories, in part because they have all the keys to the private encryption used within GitHub servers. Microsoft already has a long and sordid history of stealing from developers and startups. Even I have been a victim. The public record shows they stole my invention of caller ID for email, lock, stock, and barrel in 2004. Our GitHub product, called AmbuSorcery, integrates seamlessly into developers' tools and Git itself to stop all of that risk in its tracks with no impact upon developers. This product is well along and needs only a central identity login server and an online port of our already finished desktop Amulet criteria editor, along with 3 to 4 months of additional development and testing after receipt of adequate funding, to be ready for the Reddit community, which we expect to be enthusiastic early adopters. The central identity server and Amulet criteria editor online port will also serve to advance all the other projects I'll describe momentarily. Number 2, our Hackless Harbor product. Hackless Harbor extends all of the benefits of our proprietary patented Cocoon technology to third-party developers so that they can have a safe, isolated environment in which to have services performed that are invisible to any external parties. Components registered with Hackless Harbor operate on the device with the same or greater security as if they were embedded as hardware or firmware on the device. Yet Hackless Harbor is a purely software solution. The solution can immediately wrap many old legacy products completely in state-of-the-art Amulet and Gnomes protection without any modification or requiring only simple scripting support. This solution can be completed 4 to 6 months from receipt of adequate funding. Number 3, our AmuMail email product. AmuMail obliterates any and all attempts to hack email with seamless Amulet enciphering of email bodies and attachments, automated generation of recipient amulets, and end-to-end audit trailing of all email-related activities. This product eliminates not only technical hacking of email contexts, but also stops all phishing and social engineering hacking by ensuring all senders are fully known to and validated by the system. The real beauty of AmuMail is that it is simple, currently implemented as a menu item plug-in to the Microsoft Outlook email client. An early version of the product has been already built in and demonstrated successfully to a live in-person investor audience in Portland, Oregon on March 17, 2018. The entire presentation was recorded in a series of high-definition videos you can view at the CertitudeDigital.com website under the menu heading FAQ, Patents, Use Cases, Videos. The issue with AmuMail at present is that the older version is written only for the Windows operating system. This is great for generating email. However, you cannot be assured that your intended recipient of your email is receiving it on a Windows operating system. Therefore, for this product to be saleable, it requires one of two approaches, or perhaps a hybrid of both. We need to either write a version of AmuMail for each of the major operating systems, or we need to implement our Amulet Guardian Gateway proxy server. The Amulet Guardian Gateway proxy server allows less capable devices, such as cell phones, to decipher Amulet-protected digital assets online and download the results by conventional enciphering to their device, if permitted by the Amulet criteria protecting the digital asset. Either solution will require 6 months to 1 year of additional development once adequate funding is in hand. Finally, number 4, our Parcel Depot message and package conveyance product. This product has all the features of Dropbox, Facebook, LinkedIn, and a web hosting ISP combined, with the caveat that all of these services are provided as a closed system, where all the participants are known to the system, though not necessarily to each other. Oh, and every single piece of data and transaction around that data is under the strict purview of the owner or content provider of that data at all times, and audit trailed by the system. Parcel Depot can be offered as a public access system by Certitude Digital or privately labeled for exclusive use by, say, employees of a corporation. Parcel Depot offers lockdown secure asynchronous parcel message delivery and pickup, opt-in broadcasting, hosted web page publishing, membership perusal, Amulet and Gnome's alphabet exchanges, short-term file storage, and two-device relay by other encryption methods when permitted by a secure digital asset. This product will require 3 to 6 months of development for deployment of very basic services with continuing development into the foreseeable future to add advanced services and features.